Do you remember the day your world went from black and white to color? If you do, you probably remember everything. You came home from school and the house was just different. It was quieter than usual, like everyone was holding their breath. You walked into the living room and there it was. A massive wooden console TV that wasn't there that morning. It looked more like a piece of furniture than a machine. Heavy, solid, permanent. Your dad was crouched behind it, messing with the antenna. Your mom was carefully turning the rabbit ears on top. Your brothers and sisters were already sitting on the floor, just staring at the dark screen. And then, someone turned it on. The screen flickered, it hummed, and slowly, a picture came to life. And suddenly, there it was color. Not gray, not black and white, but real, actual color. Reds, blues, greens, yellows. It was brighter and more vivid than anything you had ever seen on television. In that moment, you knew something had changed forever. This is the story of the first day your family got a color TV, a moment that transformed living rooms and American life itself. For most of the 1950s and the early 1960s, television was black and white. And that was totally normal. We all watched I Love Lucy, Gunsmoke, Leave It to Beaver, and The Ed Sullivan Show in shades of grey. Nobody complained, because that's all there was. It was just television. Now, color television technically existed back then, but it was incredibly rare and outrageously expensive. It was completely out of reach for most families. NBC actually started broadcasting some programs in living color all the way back in 1954. They were very proud of it. But here's the catch, almost nobody could actually see that color. The first color TVs for consumers cost more than many families earned in an entire year. Think about that. So, for nearly a decade, America watched these exciting new color broadcasts in black and white. Color TV was something you heard about in magazines or saw in a store window, not something you actually owned. But that all began to change in the mid-1960s. In 1965, a major shift happened. NBC announced that almost its entire prime-time lineup would be broadcast in color. CBS and ABC quickly followed suit. Suddenly, color wasn't just a gimmick for the wealthy. It was becoming the standard. It was the future. Department stores started putting color TVs right in their front windows, drawing crowds on the sidewalk. Friends would invite other friends over to their house just to see what it looked like. And once you saw it even for just a few minutes, black and white television started to feel old. Outdated for families across the country. Getting a color TV became a major topic of conversation. They talked about it for weeks, months, sometimes even for years. This wasn't an impulse buy. It was a serious family decision. Payments had to be planned. A delivery had to be scheduled. And then, that one day, it finally happened. Two delivery men would carry in a gigantic wooden console and set it against the living room wall. People who experienced this remember that day with incredible clarity. Jim remembers his family being one of the first on their street to get a color TV. The console was so huge it took up most of one wall, and once it was there, it never moved again. He remembers watching the Rose Parade for the first time in color and seeing these brilliant red and orange flowers in the middle of winter. For years, those famous parade floats had just been different shades of gray. Now, they were alive. Lisa remembers her family getting a color TV in 1968. She says she instantly became the most popular kid on the block. All the neighborhood kids would come over to her house every single afternoon to watch cartoons. Mighty Mouse, Popeye, the Flintstones. Cartoons weren't just better in color, they felt like they were always meant for it. But the one moment that almost everyone from that generation remembers is watching The Wizard of Oz. For years, people had heard all about the famous yellow brick road and Dorothy's ruby slippers. But on a black and white TV, that legendary transition from black and white to color, well, it meant nothing. It just went from one shade of grey to another. But then, one night, on a brand new color TV set, Dorothy opens the door of her house in Munchkinland and the entire world explodes into color. The yellow of the road, the red of her shoes, the green of the Emerald City. That wasn't just television anymore. That felt like magic. Color TV turned the simple act of watching into a major event. Families gathered together. Neighbors came over to watch with you. Sunday nights were reserved for Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color. The title itself told you exactly what was important. If you didn't have a color TV, you were missing out on the wonderful world. These TVs weren't just appliances, they were pieces of furniture. They had real wood cabinets and weighed hundreds of pounds. Once they were placed in the living room, they stayed there for years. You didn't move the TV, you arranged the entire room round it. And watching color TV wasn't always effortless like it is today. Early sets had their problems. The colors could be super intense, sometimes even strange. People's faces could look bright orange or green. The signal would drift, causing the picture to roll and flicker. To fix it, you didn't just press a button on a remote. You had to get up and physically turn knobs on the set. There was one for tint, one for hue, one for color. And if the reception was really bad, someone had to stand there and hold the antenna in just the right position. Don't move. Right there. Kids today complain about a video buffering for 5 seconds. We had to stand perfectly still for an entire episode of Bonanza. Speaking of which, certain shows just felt like they were made for color. Bonanza, with its beautiful outdoor scenery. Star Trek, with the vibrant uniforms and alien planets. The wild, psychedelic colors of Laugh-In. Even Sesame Street was designed to pop in color. Sports changed completely, too. Watching a football game in color made everything so much clearer: the bright green grass, the distinct colors of the team uniforms, the lines on the field itself. Once you'd seen it, going back to black and white felt impossible. Of course, not every family upgraded right away. Many people kept their trusty black and white TVs well into the 1970s. Money was a big factor, and many families were just frugal. But eventually, color won. And when a family finally did upgrade, the old black and white TV usually didn't get thrown away. It got moved to a bedroom, or the basement, or maybe the garage. And for the very first time, many families had more than one television. Slowly, without anyone really noticing, people started watching TV separately instead of all together in the living room. So, in the end, color TV didn't just change what America watched. It changed how America lived. Today, we have gigantic, super-thin flat screens with perfect, high-definition color that works instantly. No antennas to adjust. No knobs to turn. No waiting for the screen to warm up. But if you're old enough to remember the day your family got its first color TV, you remember the excitement. You remember the neighbors coming over. You remember the warm glow of that screen in a dark room, and that magical moment the world became brighter. That TV wasn't just a box of electronics. It was a doorway. And the day it arrived was the day your world went from black and white to living color. Thanks for watching. What was the first show you remember seeing in color? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.